69 South. 69 South. 69 South. Welcome everyone to Podcast 69 South, where we cuss and discuss true crime, cold cases, current events, and hot topics, along with our state of society today. This is your trigger warning. Our podcast content is produced for adult listeners 18 years of age and older. We discuss situations that may be offensive and triggering to some listeners. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. Hey everybody, it's Chop, your 69 South podcast host. My co-host Julie and I are excited to welcome you back to another week of true crime craziness. Let's get right into it.
Hey everybody, happy September.
Happy fall weather. I love the fall weather. We just got our deck done out in the back of the house, man, and watching the leaves blow on it, just getting me excited for fall.
I know, I love that table with the fire in the middle of it. Oh, it's so nice on these cool nights.
I call these shorts and hoodie weather.
For sure.
We work outside, so we wear shorts. Legs be a little chilly in the morning, but you got to have that hoodie on. But by noon, it comes off. It's our kind of weather. Ginseng hunting, deer hunting. We enjoy all that type of shit. We're from the country out here.
We're hillbillies.
Let's get right back into this case, man. We've been excited to bring the second part 2 for you to Ellen Greenberg.
And we want to thank everybody for all the downloads. You guys have been awesome. You can go and follow our Facebook page, Podcast 69 South. We have updates from our cases on there. And, you know, we're just getting started with everything. So come and follow us and hopefully something, I don't know. You're going to cut that out.
We appreciate all the streams, but if you download it, don't cost you anything, and it really helps us out.
And if you're worried about the storage on your phone, you can delete it afterwards, and we still get the download point.
So jumping right back into it, the background of this story, we had a 27-year-old first-grade teacher, Ellen Greenberg. She was found stabbed to death by her TV producer fiancé, Sam Goldberg, on January 26, 2011, around 6:30 p.m.
Sam reports he was in the gym for a 30-minute workout and came back up to their apartment, being locked out by a slide bar latch over the door.
So basically, he kicked it in. He found her stabbed to death. Then he called 911.
Now, apparently, while he was on his 911 call, he let them know that there were no signs of life whatsoever. So the fire lieutenant, I got the idea that he knew that since there were no signs of life, because when he got to the loft apartments, he didn't even want to go up to the apartment. And he was with the paramedic, and the paramedic was like, yeah, I'm not waiting. We're going up there right now.
He saw no signs of life at all. He wanted to wait for the uniform officers to arrive. But the paramedics were like, we're not waiting. We're going up there right now. And that's at 6:40 when the fire rescue made entry. They pronounced her dead. And
when they got up there, Sam was sitting outside the apartment in the hallway on the floor. He wasn't even in the apartment with her when the medics and the fire lieutenant arrived.
So when the lieutenant and the EMS, they get done with what they have to do, they go downstairs and they are waiting on the uniform officers to arrive. But they think it's very important that they go back to headquarters, because obviously protocol on these types of things is the lieutenant went down and he told the concierge, you guys have a homicide up there. So they went straight to headquarters. They assumed that the first thing that was going to happen were they were going to get interviewed by the homicide detectives. Think about that, people. Going to want to interview them for several different reasons. They're the first people in the scene. They're the first people to see how the body was laying. They're the first people to acknowledge how the body looked, who was there. how everybody's attitude was. Was there any weird remarks made? Were anybody acting funny? I mean, that's very important shit when you're the first person to arrive on a scene. And guess what? They were not interviewed whatsoever. And it was a shock to them.
The property manager said that a uniformed officer dressed in what to appear to be SWAT gear with the police insignia on his back had taken a photo of Ellen's dead body and showed the concierge / doorman, whatever you want to call him, and the property manager the photo of Ellen. And after that, Sam was taken into custody to police headquarters. He was questioned and he had independent counsel present with him, and then he was subsequently released.
I myself, I wonder who this SWAT team officer was, if he was really some kind of a police officer, the guy with the SWAT insignia on his back. I just, somewhere in the back of my head, it makes me wonder exactly who he was, if he was really a part of the police, or if he was some kind of somebody that the higher ups sent over there to kind of lay everything back.
I don't understand why he would take a picture of Ellen's dead body and then go show it to the doorman and the property manager, because that's evidence, I'm sure, but that's not evidence that they needed to see, right?
Well, it's absolute evidence, and evidence that they don't need to be seen, because the police, they hold back evidence. They hold back stuff like that because there could have been stuff in that crime scene photo that nobody else but the killer would know. So if you go showing that to ordinary citizens, then that could be spread around, and that can confuse the investigation. That could modify the integrity of the investigation.
Now, Ellen's body sat there for hours. They had to wait for the coroner to come get her. They had to wait for the medical examiner, investigator, and finally they got her body moved around 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And I've read differing reports. Medical investigator Stephen Olszewski, I don't know if I can say that right. He stays on scene with Ellen to ensure that the knife is not removed from her chest, and he accompanies her to the morgue. But I've also seen other reports that the property manager had to sit there and watch the body until the ME investigator showed up.
Now, the next day at 9 a.m., the medical examiner, Dr. Marion Osborne, he starts the autopsy. Now, at the same time he's starting the autopsy, is being performed, Sam's uncle, James Schwartzman. We're just going to call him Uncle James, so we ain't got to say Schwartzman every damn time we're talking about this dude. He contacts Melissa Ware. She's the property manager of the Venice Loft Apartments. He was asking for her help entering the apartment in order to get a suit for Sam for Ellen's funeral. I guess in the Jewish community in this area of the country, it's customary that the funeral is, it happens like the next day, like as fast as possible. So Melissa, she calls the police, and as she should, to ask if it's okay for him to enter. The police confirm that the crime scene has been released. Think about that. The crime scene has been released. So go ahead and get in there, she says. They also state that she can call the crime scene cleanup to get the apartment cleaned up. Before calling crime scene cleanup, she takes a video of the entire apartment in order to protect her employer. Thank God for her that she had the smarts to do that. That's one of the smartest things that I've seen that anybody's done on this so far.
Mm-hmm. So Uncle James arrives with permission. That is, it's not like he tried to hide or be sneaky or whatever. He got permission. Uncle James gets permission to go pick up a suit for his nephew, Sam. But while he's there, he takes more than just a suit. He took Ellen's cell phone. He took 3 laptops, iMacs. He took her keys, her purse. She had a journal, a diary or a journal that she wrote things down in each day as far as her medicine and how she was feeling. And
Just a side note, the parents have still not received that journal yet. They still have not released that journal to the parents of Ellen Greenberg.
yeah, and in it, when there's a suicide and it's not a homicide, don't they give everything back to the next of kin?
Absolutely. But that's the thing. He initially rules the death a homicide. So guess what? The police and the investigators, they're all backtracking. Because you know why? Because they released the crime scene.
And they told him to get it cleaned up by crime scene professional cleaners.
So here we are. They have let Uncle James
Into the
crime scene. They let him take valuable evidence. Now, considering that this is a homicide, people, it's been completely cleaned up. Now, listen to the problem that this creates. It's ruled a homicide. Police need to get a search warrant and go back to the crime scene and start processing the scene as a homicide. But they can't do a proper homicide investigation. Why? They released the crime scene. They let Uncle James go pilfer in the apartment and take whatever evidence, incriminating stuff from the apartment. They had the property manager get the scene professionally cleaned. That means, folks, there's no fingerprints, no DNA, no blood, no bodily fluids, no blood splatter evidence, no patterns, no photographs, no correspondence on the computers, cell phones, no bills, receipts, proof of residency, occupancy, measurements of any types of items or measurements of the body placement. I mean, there's nothing. It's literally all been wiped clean because these cops jumped the gun. Why did they jump the gun? That's why we're here trying to figure this out.
And everything that you just mentioned was on the request for the search warrant that was issued on January 27th, the day they had the crime scene completely cleaned up. Before crime scene cleanup, just like you said, Philadelphia PD did not take not one official photo of the crime scene. Luckily, the medical examiner's investigator took photos of the crime scene whenever he got there. So there was those photos from the medical examiner's office, but not from the Philadelphia Police Department. And you can 100% tell that this was treated as a suicide, to be an open and shut case. It makes no sense whatsoever until we get back to the initial call made at 6:14 that Sam made to his cousin Camion
Schwartzman, which would be Uncle Jim.
Or James.
Uncle James' son.
Yeah. Okay. Now, if you remember, these are the two family members. If you listened to our last podcast, here was like a little teaser. Now, these are the two family members that arrived on the scene before EMS and authorities arrived. How in the world would these two arrive on scene if they're 45 minutes away, which is what I read? They're about 45 minutes away. And that takes me back to within that hour and 15 minutes that Sam came back from the gym to the time that he called 911. I personally believe that he had called them before that initial 6:14 phone call that could be proven, because this uncle and this cousin showed up to the crime scene before the police even got there.
It's been reported that he called Cousin Camion at 6:14, and you can also assume that Cousin Camion called his father, Uncle James, because at 6:26, Sam received a call from Uncle James.
Now, who is Uncle James?
Let's get into who Uncle James is. This is really interesting, and I think we're going to try to find out and start to figure out why this is all being swept under the rug.
So,
first of all,
at the
Camion
time-
Schwartzman is Sam Goldberg's cousin, and his father is James Schwartzman.
yeah, at the time of Ellen's death, Uncle James was the vice chairman of the board of directors of the Southeastern Pennsylvania Transportation Authority. And he is a very important political person in Pennsylvania. He is also a former prosecutor, and currently, right now, he's the president judge of the Pennsylvania Court of Judicial Discipline. He's a former assistant U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Pennsylvania. He was a Pennsylvania super lawyer since 2004, a previous chairman of the Pennsylvania Judicial Conduct Board, a former chairman of the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania Disciplinary Board, and a law partners at Stevens and Lee, and the chairman of its Ethics and Professional Responsibility Division.
So this dude's responsible for keeping other lawyers and judges in line and making sure their ethics are correct and they're being responsible for their actions. And
yeah, so if a judge or a lawyer gets a discipline referral, or this is the judge that they go before to get admonished or sentenced or reprimanded.
All starting to make a little bit of sense now, ain't it, people?
How scary is that?
That's very scary. So on January 29th, these cell phones and laptops are turned into to Detective Sierra at Philadelphia Homicide. That's 2 days, people. That's 2 days that Uncle
James,
he had control of these laptops. He had control of the cell phones, the purse, the keys. Any evidence that was on them could have been wiped clean. They did whatever they wanted to. That was their whole point. Why would he take her personal property? Her and Sam was not married. That was her personal property. In my mind, there's only one reason that he took that shit, and that was to make sure there wasn't no evidence against his little baby Sam.
And also, I believe that in that time when Sam went to the gym, he was on the phone with this man. He was telling him what to do. He is a former prosecutor. So he knows what prosecutors are going to look at, what they're going to think. And he knows that if they think that she committed suicide, it's going to be an open and shut case. They tried to take her laptop and prove that there were searches relating to quick death and
suicide, the fastest way to suicide, the antipsychotic medicine that she was on related to suicide. And we're going to get into that in a minute because that's some bullshit too. But one main part that we're missing here is from the timeline that we've researched, he called Uncle James and his cousin before he went back up to even realize that the door was locked.
Yeah, he didn't. According to him, at 6:14, he was on the phone with them before he even got through the door to know that anything was wrong with Ellen. He said that initial call to his cousin was to let his cousin know that he was locked out of his apartment. Now, his cousin's 45 minutes away at Uncle James' house. What's he going to do?
There's another point. He's 45 minutes away, but they still made it to the crime scene before police and EMS and the lieutenant fire department made it there. Now, if he's 45 minutes away and you're calling this dude, telling him you're locked out, something is real smelling like some rotten ass fish right there. That is just some straight bullshit right there. Why would you call a lawyer when supposedly you don't know anything's wrong yet, and all of a sudden your cousin lawyer and your uncle judge are on the scene? I mean, that just blows me away. To me right there, that's damning evidence.
The property manager also stated that James kept trying to get up to the crime scene area that night, like get up there in the apartment, but the uniform officers wouldn't let him go past like a certain barricade. His little phone call the next day, he was able to get in there using his lawyer strings, I guess he's pulling.
There's so much connection here to politics, police, and privilege. I have never, ever, ever heard of a crime scene being cleaned up before the medical examiner ruled the cause of death. This cause of death was not ruled homicide until...
It was initially ruled homicide in the rough draft report from the medical examiners. But then the medical examiner had, we'll call it a secret squirrel meeting with a district attorney, 2 top Philadelphia police officers.
And there's some ties, district attorney.
The medical examiner.
Uncle James was a prosecutor.
Yeah, so
There's
he's in tight with them all.
They're all in tight right there. Where we're getting with is it's all coming real clear why Sam's not being charged, why these poor parents are having such a hard time getting this ruled to a homicide. And you got to realize, folks, if it's not ruled a homicide, then they're not going to spend any time working on it. So that's the whole point. The whole point of it still being ruled as a suicide is that they're not going to waste any more money or time or man hours or anything to try to investigate this thing.
Now, her parents got in contact with Henry Lee, the famous, I believe he's a forensic pathologist, maybe?
Yeah, I think he's the most famous forensic pathologist in the world, in my eyes. Blood splatter, every crime show I have ever watched that has him on it, man, he is just a literal genius when it comes to that. Do we have a report from him? He did a report on this, didn't he?
Yes, and I'm going to read a summary of his findings because he went over all the evidence that was presented to him from Ellen's family that they had to sue to get any of this evidence. Now, what he said was after review of the reports and the photographs, the kitchen area where the decedent is found is consistent with the primary indoor scene. Assuming that all of the blood noted was the defendant's blood, the blood stain patterns indicate that she was in a standing position when she received her initial injuries, which caused the blood dripping on the kitchen sink, counter, cabinet, and drops on the floor. Subsequently, she was on the floor with her head leaning forward, producing all of the blood drops that fell onto her pants and between her legs. 2 separate contact stains were found on the cabinet near her. One stain was consistent with a wipe from right to left. The second was consistent with a hair swipe, indicating her hair with blood from her head injury came in contact with the cabinet in a downward direction. The stab wounds noted in the photographs are consistent with being caused by a knife, but there is no indication of the length or the width of the knife except for the wound in which the knife was embedded to the handle. That was the one in her chest. The decedent received additional wounds to her neck and head that were not clear in the scene photographs. Therefore, it is not possible to make additional observations on those patterns at this time. The number and type of wounds and bloodstain patterns observed are consistent with the homicide scene.
And there's a lot more to that. If you put all these pieces together, and a lot of this isn't really circumstantial evidence. A lot of this is real shit. I mean, she has blood stains on the cabinet with her hair. I mean, what is she doing? Is she listening to heavy metal after she stabbed herself in the face and the neck? Is she beating her head off the cabinet? You know what I mean? A lot of these wounds, 10 of them was to the back of her neck. That's insane by itself. One or two of the wounds was reportedly nicked her spinal cord. That wasn't the last wound. That was number 4 or 5 wounds. And there was other wounds that were stab wounds that there was no hemorrhaging around. No hemorrhaging, folks, means there was no heartbeat. When you have a stab wound and there's no bleeding or hemorrhaging around it, that means your blood's not being pumped through. You're not alive.
Post-mortem.
So with all this being considered, and Sam admitting that he was the one that quote unquote broke the door down. Why isn't this dude being indicted? Why isn't this dude being pressed any harder than what he is? It just aggravates the piss out of me, and I feel so bad for these parents, man. I feel bad for our country that shit like this can go on because of politics and politicians and people of privilege.
Yeah, exactly. And, another thing that I found weird is if you're going to commit suicide and stab yourself, are you going to do it with 2 layers of clothes on? I mean, she had like a regular t-shirt on, and then she had a hoodie over that was like a half zip.
Quarter zip hoodie. Like
yeah, kind of like a quarter zip.
I love those things.
And she's going to stab herself through these things.
And is she going to reach around and stab herself in the back of the neck? That's fucking crazy. That makes no sense at all. She's a first grade teacher. She lived a good life. She had parents. She was raised right.
She was getting ready to get married.
Getting ready to get married to the love of her life. Another thing that gets me, folks, add all that we've talked about and think about all the bruises all over her body that were in different stages of healing. She had been abused by somebody, or something's going on somewhere. Why would there be wounds in different stages of healing? Why would there be different reports of how she was laid out when the medical examiner got there as averse to the 911 call? I'd also like to get into what the police say that her search history was on the computer. And when I talk about that, when the cops, the police, the investigators, when they got her computer back and they started going through it, keep this in mind, Schwartzman's, they had it for 2 days, so no telling what the hell they did with it, you know what I mean? They were talking about that they were finding searches where she was looking up suicide, the fastest way to kill yourself, all this shit. But there's things called ghost searches, or there's another name for it. It's phantom searches. And let me explain that to you. What that is I know everybody knows what I'm talking about. What it is she was looking up medicine. I think she was talking about maybe it was making her tired or something. So she types in the medicine that she's using, and 50 other things pop up. Like, for instance, just take your phone and type in Ambien, side effects of Ambien, and it's going to come up in these phantom searches. You can scroll down and you can see suicide.
Click on a link, and then it's going to take you to the pages, and they have other links on those pages that advertise other things or advertise help for maybe suicide or stuff like that. It doesn't mean that she clicked on it. Right.
It's just like a spider web. Like the spider web is the spider is your search, and once you hit that spider, the webs just go off anywhere. That's why they call it the web, I guess. I don't know. It's the internet, the web. But so that was another reason why they was so quick to call this a suicide. But the parents hired forensic computer investigators. I'm not sure what the term of it is, but they proved that those were phantom searches. It's not shit that she clicked on. They're not even sure that she was the one on the computer at the time that those were being looked at.
No, she didn't want to kill herself at all. She had spoke to her mother that morning. And another thing that I want to get into is on her autopsy, they found bruising. They found like 11 to 12 different bruises all over her body in different stages of healing. And she was also at a time speaking to her parents, wanting to move back home for a little bit. So when I read that, that makes me believe and think, I wonder if she was dealing with domestic violence. Was Sam putting his hands on her? Is that why she had so much anxiety and didn't want to tell nobody? I mean, who wants to go tell somebody that their old man's beating on them? They're supposed to be getting married in 3 months. And also on her autopsy, there was bruising and there were signs of strangulation.
And that makes me wonder if that's where the stab wounds were around her neck, trying to hide the hemorrhaging from the bruising, from the the strangulation that had went on days or weeks before. And you got to realize, people, that Jewish people, their lifestyles, and they keep their family a lot secret. I mean, I guess people had asked, how's everything going? Yeah, she's just stressed at work. They don't want to dog their husband. They don't want anybody to think they have any problems. They're pretty independent. She was an only child. Her parents were very professional. They would have been worried to death about her. I'm sure they would have said, "Get your ass home right now. What's going on?" So you know how it is. I mean, I'm the same way. I don't bring my problems out to
the world.
To the world, you know what I mean? If me and Julie's having a problem or some little disagreement, or sometimes she gets mad at me and chokes the shit out of me, I just don't run and tell everybody that. I'm just like, just work's bothering me and shit. I mean, so whatever made it escalate to this, if you take every aspect of this case, man, I don't see how anybody with half a brain can even question that this was a suicide. It makes no sense to me. And with him wanting to throw the narrative out that she was the only one there until he got in here, that caps it off for me. And folks, this is just my opinion, but I was born at night, but it was early, and it was not last night. And it was early. But I wish you guys would get on our Facebook, join our Facebook, man, and tell us what you think about it. We got the pictures posted of the door locks. Julia posted pictures of the
3D imaging of the stab wounds.
Yeah.
There was just crazy. You see these and they are going to infuriate you.
It's just insane.
And we need to give a shout out to Gavin Fish, because he's got documents galore. He's done more than a deep dive in this case, and they're even coming after him for breaking this story out like he is. And he's working with the parents, and he's doing a really good job. So if y'all get a chance, go find gavinfish.com. It'll link to all of his socials or whatever, but he's a really good podcaster. And I got a lot of my research from his research, so you guys should check him out as well.
That's going to wrap up this week's episode. We've enjoyed hanging out with you, and I hope you've enjoyed hanging out with us too. Until next week, when we have another good episode and another good case for you, we got a really, really, really good one coming up for you. We will be dropping breadcrumbs on our Facebook. Hit us up on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, 69 South Podcast. We love to hear your intake. We love to hear your comments. Please like, please share, please download. It really helps us out, man. So until then, I would stay the fuck away from Philadelphia.